We'll now move on to Mickey. Now, Mickey himself will tell you that he was deeply unhappy with how last season panned out and probably how the last 2 years have panned out, particularly after his first season was so successful and really raised expectations so much. Naturally, in sport, when a team is underperforming, supporters and the outside world, they begin to wonder if it's sustainable for the coach to still be in post. However, I think it's very important to say that Mickey's importance to this club, it goes beyond simply winning games at this moment in time. It helps to raise profile for the club to have an international coach, and there are players who want to play for Mickey Arthur and want to come to Derbyshire because Mickey Arthur's here. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, look, it is a results sort of business at the end of the day. I think everybody understands that. But again, when I came in and my expectation of what success looked at where we are at the moment, was probably, I have more colour. So to a fan, I mean, we want to win every game. I want to win every game. But when I know what we're working with at times, I think my expectation is probably a little bit more tempered, and I'm a little bit more long term in the thinking and the journey that we're on. And again, that sort of lends itself to some of the players and the recruits that have also seen and bought into that. The likes of Jack Morley cutting his contract short at Lancashire to want to come and play, with us. And Jack's a great young player and prospect. He's got a lot to learn. But again, it was proactive signing, and he's cut his contract short at a big county to want to come and play for us. Again, Martin Anderson, great prospect, really excited to see Martin come and play with us. And again, he wanted to come into our career programme with the journey that we're on, with what we're trying to achieve. And again, you do that through stability. I think you do that from being composed and believing in what we're doing underneath, really. And I can only say for the progress that we've made so far on the Creek Committee and what I've witnessed, that leaves me excited going forward. And then Harry, we had a conversation. Harry gets snapped up by one of the best agencies in the land, who are not stupid in terms of seeing the talent. But we were desperate to sign him when everybody, I think, thought that, well, he's just going to go down the road or somebody big's going to come along and lock him up. We said, no, let's be proactive. We've developed Harry. He is passionate to play for Derbyshire. He'll have no doubt lots of people getting then in his ear or trying to influence him. But let's treat him as the prospect that he is. But ultimately, he needs to be playing. And here we can offer him opportunity. And again, working under Mickey, working under an international coach, if that's his trajectory looks like he's going to be moving into that environment, then it's invaluable for him to be working, under Mickey. And again, on Pat, again, we've talked about Pat and sort of, I don't say re-emergence because it's the wrong word, but in terms of, moving from Worcester, coming back here, and then now he is playing for the England Lions and he's on the verge, hopefully, of getting back into that England men's side, potentially as a little bit of a wild card. So, I look at my own time here, and I played under a lot of coaches, and the chopping and changing of coaches, and the different styles of coaches. And Mickey would be classed as a more old style coach, and I think there's question marks as to whether at times with some of the roles that he's taken. And the optics of some of those roles, the optics don't look good. I can say, but actually I can say that the perception and reality, the optics might look good, but when these opportunities come, we ask a question: is our cricket programme going to be compromised by this opportunity? And there needs to be a broader thought about what that means as well. The Rangpur job, Wayne Madsen, Zach Chappell getting opportunities, being successful there, just as the cricket environment has evolved for players, it's evolving for coaches. Now, the criticisms say, well, Mickey's fantastic at running an international programme, can he run a domestic programme? What's his knowledge and understanding of the domestic game and the county game? And obviously, we've had the robust discussions, on the cricket committee to that effect. And it's not about money. Mickey's not here because he's most well-paid director of cricket on the circuit. I can remember when the Yorkshire game happened, and it's tough. Nobody wants to lose in that fashion. And I called him up, and I could sense the emotion, that Mickey had at that point in time. And it wasn't about, there's sort of a greater calling. Some of the Derbyshire heroes are heroes of Mickey, and I think it's about emulating some of those and the success of some of those. And it's not that we're paying him a big chunky director of cricket fee. There's optically sometimes people can say it's not about that. He is passionate about the project. He sees what we have. He sees the potential, as we all do, and it's trying to create the environment by which that thrives and you realise that potential. And it's going to be a long game to do it. I think that's what people are going to do, and that's my tendency is to play that long game. Unless fundamentally something changes of that. We're all big enough and ugly enough to know what professional sport is at the end of the day. But as it stands at the moment, from what I've seen and heard, then we stick to that journey and we stick to that trajectory. Yeah,
and you mentioned some of the roles taken. Of course, it was recently announced that Mickey would be joining Northern Superchargers in the 100, and I think there was maybe a little bit of misunderstanding. That would mean he would be leaving Derbyshire in August, that he would be, cutting his time between the two. That isn't really the case, is it? It's more of a role overseeing that team's recruitment, but Mickey will be with Derbyshire during the One Day Cup. He will still be doing his role, and he will still be doing his role right up to that point as well.
Yeah, and look, I think for fans it goes back to the Pakistan role. I think ultimately we might as well talk honestly about it. I think he lost a lot of people or lost confidence of fans taking that role. But again, from what we see and from what Wine sees and from the messages and from the communication, again, the perception, reality. But sometimes that's perception is reality. But what I can say is it wasn't for those when you party to the full information. Again, was our cricket programme compromised by that? Well, you could, when you finish bottom of the league, it's easy to say that that's the case. But actually, that wasn't necessarily the case. And look, you leave yourself open to that criticism if things aren't going well, and I think Mickey knows that, and he's obviously quite thick-skinned, given the experience and the time that he's had in the game. But again, on the Northern Superchargers role, we're not reinventing the wheel in terms of that role. DOCs around the game. Marcus North, obviously director of cricket at Durham, had that role previously. And most of the work, ironically, is done now, as when we're sitting down doing this interview in January, rather than in the season, and I hope it facilitates opportunities for our players at the end of the day. I think we all know, and you can see by team rosters as to perhaps how some of those roles influence selection, and we've got to position ourselves into some of those into some of those roles. And Mickey's obviously got that by his credibility and his experience. And Andrew Flintoff is the England Lions coach, who's the head coach of the Northern Superchargers. I expect Mickey to be in Freddie's ear to say, make sure that you're keeping an eye on Harry and Pat. They've got to perform and they've got to do that. But I hope it creates opportunities because it widens the net for the players. Zach Chappell, Pat Brown, Ross White, all these guys that played in 100, Wayne Madsen. I just hope it creates opportunities for players, and it's just a broader play. It's a broader play, I think, in terms of how that coaching environment has evolved and the marketplace that we're operating in at the moment. So, and again, we get paid the compensation just like you get compensation for the players. It's the same compensation for the coaches. It's not about money. It's not about money. It's about seizing the opportunity. Being open-minded in the evolution of those roles. Is our cricket programme compromised? I don't think it will be compromised in this instance. I hope there's wider, a wider effect in terms of, that role for the club, basically.